Eric, thank you for joining us. There's so many things that I think our viewers would want to talk to you about because Google interacts with so many people on a daily basis. But I want to speak to you about something very specifically, and that is the criticism that our government is inefficient. How does a guy like you, who has a company that interacts with many, many millions of people every day and has to have an efficient operation, what would you offer the government in terms of how they can make the operation of government more efficient?
Well, they don't really measure anything in government, as best I can tell. And with modern technology, we could figure out exactly how many people are served by every bill. So I would do that. And then the other thing I would do is I would use technology to know where do all of these earmarks and special drafts and so forth come from. The health care bill had something like 1,200 pages, all inserted by one constituency or another. I'd like to see how those things each got in there and why. We could easily have a much more coherent government if we measured it and knew how it was being put together.
And you have technologies at Google, and other great technology companies in America are working on things that sort of we don't really know because it hasn't hit us yet. Is there technology out there that can really help us measure, track, really determine the efficiency of every dollar that is spent in government? Because we're having great trouble with that as we track stimulus spending, as we track earmarks here at CNN. It seems tough to do that.
Well, in our industry, we think that this is almost comical because we can track everything down to the penny, to the cent, to the user, to the access. Modern computers are particularly good at that, and it makes me crazy to have all these conversations. Just ask. We can know who did what, where they went, what they did, and so forth with the money. And if you look, for example, at the bailout, they're still arguing over where the money went. How can this possibly be true?
We put on Facebook and Twitter that you were coming to talk to us, and this is a big company. Google's a big company. As of the end of 2009, more than $40 billion in assets, $2.7 billion in liabilities. Boy, would we wish our federal budgets had that kind of a ratio, and 20,000 employees. So very, very large company, not as large as the federal government. And as somebody said on Facebook, you don't have to deal with Congress. You don't have to deal with the House of Representatives and the Senate. How much of that hampers efficiency, and what would you even do about it?
Well, the framers of our Constitution specifically did not want a very strong, large, centralized federal government. They wanted the power to be in the states. We've gotten ourselves into a situation where, since we do deficit spending, the federal government has all the money and the states don't have any money to experiment. So we're in a situation where the federal government has all the power and the money, but it's not organized around a single CEO or the presidency or what have you, which I think is what's driving everybody crazy. Most people I talk to want a stronger president until the president does something they don't want, and then they want a stronger Congress. Our system has a set of checks and balances, and until we recognize that because it's always back and forth, it's fundamentally conservative, we'll always be criticizing it. It'd be much better to let the experiments and the focus be occurring at a local and a state level and much more measurable and objectives outcome.
You use the term experiments. This is actually a big part of Google's culture. It's something I really enjoy, and I wonder whether it would work in government. You actually give your employees a fifth of their time to experiment, to noodle around, to find a new solution. Babe Buchanan said a few moments ago, politicians should probably spend less time in Washington, have them there for an intense period of time, and then go back out and see what's really going on. I'm wondering if there's some learning that could shift from Google to Congress in terms of dedicating some of your time to learning a different way of doing things. Tell me a little about how it works at Google and whether I'm off base here.
Well, at Google, first, the employees are encouraged to spend 20% of their time working on things of their interest, which often are new and clever things in the general area of Google's business. So we benefit. Many of our new products come from that. In government's case, the problem is that the bureaucratic mindset prohibits innovation, and that innovation is, in fact, the solution to our problems. So my attitude about the healthcare issues or the educational issues is let's try 10 different approaches, of which at least 9 will fail. But the one that works well, let's bet on that. Let's invest in it. Let's make it happen. And let's learn from that. And because nobody really wants to take the risks and really wants to see a couple of things fail and a couple of things succeed, we never fundamentally have a new breakthrough.